Controlled experiments are experiments where the scientists can manipulate the factors that can affect the outcome, that can affect the data that we can collect from that experiment. So it is controlled when we can manipulate those factors. We can essentially determine not the exact result. We cannot determine the result, but we can determine the factors that can affect that result, and to be able to understand what really affected the outcome, we can choose what factors we allow to change and what factors we don't allow to change. These factors is what we call variables. Let me use an example of, it's not a physical science example, but it can help us understand things easily. Let's assume we would like to study the effect of the amount of water we add to plants we grow in pots in our home. Now, so one type of variable is what we call a controlled variable. It is a variable that is kept constant, not allowed to change. It is not a variable that is manipulated. The only way it is manipulated, it is kept the same. Now, in this case, if you would like to figure out the effect of watering on the plants we are trying to grow at home, some of the controlled variables we might consider are the type of plants, because one type of plant might grow differently than another type of plant. So for our experiment to be valid, to be able to tell us just the effect of water, we need to limit the type of plants. We control that. So we make the test, we do the experiment only on one type of plant. So that's a controlled variable. The other controlled variable can be the type of soil used. So if we use different soils, we might get different outcomes. The size of the pot used, because the size of pot used can affect the amount of evaporation of water and can be a factor that affects the outcome. So we can control that. So controlled variables in this example can be the type of plant, the type of soil, the size of the pot, and obviously where we place the plants, what room, what kind of, are they subject to the same temperature, are they subject to the same amount of light, etc. Now, these are controlled variables. Now, what we call the independent variable, it is the one we would like to check how it is affecting our outcome. It is the one that we want to investigate. Like in this case, the amount of water. The amount of water is the variable that we are trying to investigate. It is the one that we are going to manipulate in the experiment. In one pot, we might water every day twice. In the other pot, we might water only once, etc. So it is the variable that we would like to manipulate. It is the one that's going to affect the outcome. That's what we call the independent variable. The dependent variable, it is our outcome, is what we want to measure. It is the variable that the independent variable is going to affect. The amount of water is going to affect our dependent variable. So in this case, the growth of the plant. That's what I'm going to measure. That's going to be my dependent variable. The growth of the plant is going to depend on the amount of water that I'm going to provide. It's going to depend on the independent variable. That's why we call it dependent. So we measure the dependent variable. It's not manipulated. It is the outcome of the experiment. It is what we measure. That's the dependent variable.